Welcome to this episode of iDialogue. I'm very pleased to say that we have a very special guest who is a rabbi from Baghdad. He will be speaking to us about the history of Jews living under Muslim rule. He's going to be discussing Palestine, he's going to be discussing the khulafa of the past, and as well as what the future holds for Jews and Muslims.
There's one thing which has to be discussed about, is about the demonization of the Muslim people with their Muslim religion. Unfortunately, I can start with like this. The Second World War, when there was a Holocaust, the Zionists are looking every time. They have a museum, a big museum, that talks about the right to the non-Jews.
Jerusalem.
Exactly.
Yes.
So every non-Jew that saved the Jew, they give him a hole, they plant a tree for his name, and he receives the check. His family received a monthly check, also support for his family. That's also expressive thanks for what they do for Jews. There's some people who saved a few thousand Jews, some people said one Jew, as they don't have the planting trees. But Muslims, you almost never find any Muslim which saved Jews. So the question is there really the Muslim never saved any Jews during the history, or during the Second World War? Is there really the Muslims are such a vicious people that always suppressed the Jews, and they always ousted the Jews from their lands, never welcomed the Jews? Is the Jews had such a terrible time among Muslim jurisdictions from the beginning of the Caliphate? Khalif Abu Bakr, Khalif Omar ibn Khattab, Khalif Othman, Khalif Ali ibn Abu Talib, and his son Hassan, Al-Khalif Hassan. And by the Abbasids also, 500 years of the Abbasid Caliphate, after the black band flag of the Abbasids. We spoke about Bet Umayyah. 500 years of worship of the Abbasid Caliphate under Harun al-Rashid and his son, Mu'tasim, his son al-Maymun. Jews had such a bad time, and they have to flee the Muslim countries, or they had such a good time in Palestine. Jews been exiled, and the rabbi have said that the divine decree is the Jews were welcomed. They were lived after even if the Muslim built the Haram al-Sharif, the Masjid al-Aqsa, is the Jews were welcomed in Palestine. After the crusade, the second crusade, when Al-Khalif, Al-Sultan, Nasser, Yusuf, Salah ad-Din al-Ayyubi have recaptured Palestine from the Christians, these Jews were welcomed back, or they've been ousted? Is that continued till the First World War, Second World War? Is the Palestinians considered friendly people, or they just dislike Jews? They always protected the Jews, or they just were persecuting the Jews? So all of these questions has to be answered. First of all, Muslim religion, it's known, is based on a lot of mercy. And as you said, it is a Muslim law that takes under the jurisdiction, under their wings, the other religions which didn't accept Islam, and they've been protected, and they've been under the wings of Islam. We Jews saw it all over the place, from the great mountainous area of Afghanistan till Morocco, where the Islamic Caliphate has been spread that far. We saw it by the Khalif ibn Abu Bakr. We saw it Khalif Omar ibn Khattab, who had the tradition that one time he was eating his breakfast, and there was a Jew came to him and he was complaining that the Muslim did from him injustice. And so he didn't have what to write. He took a stone, he wrote on the stone to send it to told the Jew, take it to the judge. And the stone is written, there's no time. I'm asking you to make justice for this Jew. I don't know what happened, but you should take an investigation and make justice for this Jew. He was a right to. He loved very much Jews, and he respected the Jews. He gave for the Jews in Baghdad. After he conquered Baghdad, Jews came to him to give him a congratulation for the conquest of Iraq, and he respected very much Jews, and he restored the Jewish religious autonomy. We had a religious autonomy under the jurisdiction of Islam. We paid the jizya, which is a fair tax, and this tax, which worked like a tax credit, if you don't know, means like the Muslims took for the rich Jews money, but when they saw that these poor Jews that didn't have money to live, they gave them food, and they gave them like it's called like vouchers, like coupons, to be able to survive. Religion, Jewish religion was flourishing underneath Islam. Books, Jewish books, thousands of Jewish books have been printed that was in Islamic countries, not unlike in Europe, which was the church has set up a very strict censorship. In the Muslim countries, they never looked what we print, what we write, and even though some Jewish writers, Jewish rabbis that wanted to print their books, they went to Turkey or to Morocco to print their books because they knew that there's no censorship. That's called a kingdom of charity, a kingdom of mercy on us. That's how we survived for more than 1,300 years. In Palestine, when the crusade came, there was 300 Jews lived in Palestine, in Jerusalem mainly. When the Crusaders besieged Jerusalem after 5 days, they burst in and they slaughtered all the Muslims. There was rivers of blood came out from Jerusalem, and they captured these 300 Jews, they put them into the synagogue and they burned them. So for the next 50 years, maybe more, 70 years, Jews were not existing in Palestine. Well, when the Kurdish Caliphate has been established, so the Caliph Nur ad-Din has started to set up his attacks on Palestine to release Palestine from the Crusaders. He did it partially, but his son, Al-Khalif Nasser Yusuf ad-Din al-Ayyubi, he released almost 95% of Palestine, even 99%. And then his advisor and personal doctor, Al-Maimonides, was one of his biggest rabbi. He was his personal doctor. And then the Sultan, the Caliph, has issued a fatwa that allowed the Jews to come back to Palestine. So who opened the doors back to Palestine? It was the Muslim and the Palestinians. So we have to be thankful for what they did to us in history. The question is that fine? That was already 900 years ago. Maybe the Muslims changed their attitudes to Jews.
Yes.
So the answer is, if you look even at the golden era of the 300 years that the Muslims had control in Spain. You mentioned that when Jews were ousted from Spain, they were welcomed by the Muslim countries, which is true. But you don't tell what was happening in these 300 years, how the Jews were being treated by the Muslims. So the answer is, who is the ones the Muslim Caliphate in Spain? It was Abu Rahman I, which fled when the Abbasids took over Iraq. He fled from the whole way through Iraq, Egypt, and Libya, Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco. Then he crossed the Gibraltar water strait and he established a very powerful caliphate from Bet Umayyah. He was the only descendant of Bet Umayyah Caliphate. It was continued for 300 years, and he is the first, and it was surrounded himself by Jewish advisors. And also, I can tell you that the Jews gained so many rights in Spain that it was amazing. The Secretary of Defense of Abu Rahman I was a Jew. He was Secretary of Defense and Secretary of Foreign Affairs at the same time. His name was Al-Hacham Shmuel Al-Najdallah. Najdallah in Arabic means the rich, powerful person. He's the one who really was running the war with the Christians in the north of Palestine. Right. He used to sign peace agreements with them, and He's the one. He was everything. The Caliph gave him all the power. Abu Rahman II kept his glorious Caliphate and then it was a stop. Then it was Hakim I. It was a very great king, which we remember. We have a lot of our literature. Yes, how did great things he was for Jews. And then Abu Rahman III. He was one of the greatest of all of them. He was very energetic, he was very charismatic, he was very powerful. He developed Spain for the Muslims. He didn't forget from his Jewish brothers. He gave us full religious right. It was called by us the golden era, 300 years.
So this is in Spain, known by Jews as the golden era.
Yes, and the Zionists have a big problem too. Now, when they're trying to demonize with the total power on the Western media, radios, newspapers, internet, televisions, they have a problem. What we're doing here to justify a Zionist colonial power that enslave, deporting, killing, and destroying the Palestinian people, and to justify that Jews need a state to protect themselves. So the only answer is you have to demonize the Muslims. But there's they have a problem. How can you deny such a great history of 1,300 years that the Muslim was so good for people? So we stopped. That was okay. So that was 600 years ago, 500 years ago, till the Jews were expelled from Spain. So maybe it stopped. Maybe the Muslims became evil to the Jews. Finished. They had a great time for 700 years. Okay, fine, but now they gave us 500 bad years. So the answer is, if you look at how many countries, Morocco, Algeria, Egypt, and again, Palestine, the evil Palestinians, again open the doors for the Jews for the Spanish Jews. And Turkey, the Turkish Sultan says he's very happy to expect the Jews. He's going to make now Turkey rich because the Jews are very, very clever in business. That's what he said. And he gave them right away. He assured them, every country that came, the first thing they told them, your religious rights will be preserved. You will be secured. And okay, fine. So that's continue like that another few hundred years. But maybe by the Second World War finished, now the Muslim will become vicious now. So let's take a look at this Second World War. Second World War in Morocco, the Germans was controlling Morocco for 2.5 years, almost 3 years, and they were asking kindly, or not kindly, the king of Morocco, Muhammad, that he should agree to oust, to concentrate and oust and kick out all the Jews from Morocco to the concentration camps in Europe. And he said, no way, you're not going to get my cooperation. The Jews here is protected by the Muslim religion. Let's go to Iran, the other way. The Shah, Muhammad Reza Pahlavi, the father of the last Shah, he had a great relations with Hitler. Yes, Iran was an ally, a political and economical ally of Germany. So Hitler said to them, listen, you have 150,000 Jews in your place. That's my enemy. So I want you to start to impose, restrictions on them, push them to ghettos, to concentration camps, impose the yellow David Star. So the Shah says, no way. They're first-class citizens and they're protected by the Islamic religion. And you know what Hitler has? He didn't have any choice. He had to accept it. Okay, so let's finish. So that till the Second World War, the Muslims were very, very good, but then they became very evil. So in the Second World War, we have Albania, a Muslim country in the Balkan. They had 8,000 Jews, and they've all been saved by the Balkan, by the Muslims. The Germans were controlling Albania for 4 years. So how come no Jews were killed? That's the answer is the Muslims were hiding the Jews in the mosques, in the basements, and they were sharing with them the bread and fruits and vegetables. Non-Jew were extradited for the Germans, even though the Germans had a policy of rewarding every guy that bring a Jew, a live Jew. He received sugar, he received a lot of economical benefits. Non-Jew were extradited. So we have now a nice amount of countries, that in the Second World War received Jews, protected Jews, and this. So what for we need a Zionist state to protect ourselves if the Muslim, because not if, since the Muslims were very good for us. There is no reason whatsoever besides our religion was a doctrine that we are in exile under divine decree. What we see here as the Zionists, in order to justify the genocide in Gaza, to justify their expansion and their occupation and their killing and injustice was rule of Palestine, must demonizing the Muslims. And that's what they do in here. They look at every small incident. If people are Muslim are angry about the genocide in Gaza, they call it anti-Semitism. Is the Muslims anti-Semite? No, we just proven to you now that they like Jews, they cooperate with the Jews, and they protected the Jews, which is part of their foundations of their religion. So I would like to go back to the Caliphate, the Caliph Harun al-Rashid from the Abbasid Caliphate. He ruled for 22 years with his children Mu'tasim and Al-Maimun. There was one of the greatest time. He used to give charity every day, 1,200 dirham. Dirham, I think it's a silver coin. And he used to give 1,200. All his richness, he used to give. He married a Yemenite girl, which was very, very, very smart, and she also gave all her property for charity, which is an amazing thing. And I would like to tell you something. The Jews enjoyed from this charity. The poor Jews in Iraq was enjoying this from this charity. Many times the Muslim gave them. Now, What about me? I can give any testimony. Well, I give you a lot of history how the Muslims were great to our people. What about me? I'm considering myself as a Muslim miracle. How come? In Baghdad, there was 100,000 Jews lived, till the establishment of this Zionist entity, and in order to remove all the Jews from the Eastern countries, from the Arab countries, how can they move the Jews, which were very wealthy, very rich, very, had a lot of Jewish institutions, and they had a very good time there. Why should they leave to a new state, which would have to confront the Muslims in a relentless fighting with them in order to justify their occupation there? So they didn't want to move. So the Zionists are established terror squad units, which went to all Arab countries, Yemen, Morocco, Iraq, and many other countries in Syria, and they started to conduct terror attacks against the Jews, and they said, that's the Muslim are doing to. It's the good days with the Muslim is ended up already. It's finished.
Do you have a proof of that? Or
it's not the proof. If I would have said it, I would have been considered a liar. But one of the Zionist terrorists, commanders, he wrote a book which he admitted that he did it. For example, the Jews had such a hobby to go to the Dijlat River at the holiday, Jewish holiday Shavuos. So they went to pray, to praise God right in the river. That was our way how we praise God in one of our ways. So the Zionist terrorists were waiting for a few bombs, and they killed a few of them. There was a restaurant in Baghdad that was blew up. And then there was another 4 synagogues that were blew up. So the first wave then they started to conduct the propaganda, the Muslim here to kill you all. So 10,000 Jews left. When they saw that that the Jews are hesitating to leave, not to leave, to run away, not to run away, it's really the old Muslims hate us. So they conducted another few terror attacks to convince that Jews, it's not your place anymore. The good days are ended up. There was a Rabbi Matzliach Mazuz, which his son is a Zionist today, unfortunately, which he didn't allow. The Zionists were asking him, please give a fatwa, give a verdict that all the Jews should leave Morocco. He said, no way, by no means. He was murdered by the Zionists. In order to remove this obstacle to allow the Jews to tell the Jews they have no future anymore there. Anyhow, so in the Second World War, there was some of the Iraqi regime's elements were cooperating with the Nazis, and a small group of the Iraqi army was cooperating with the Nazi ambassador of Germany in Iraq, and he was asking them to do to pogromize the Jews. And it was called the Farhud in Arabic. That means in Arabic it's called a pogrom, manslaughter, genocide. They killed 200 Jews, which is unfortunately a large number. But how many Jews were saved? Tens of thousands. All the Muslim neighbors took the Jews and put them in their apartments. And when this Iraqi soldiers went from one house to house, they had a list and knew where Jews lived. They were facing a fierce resistance from the Muslim neighbors. My parents' landlord, he used to live in the first floor. On the second floor, it was my mother's family, 14 children with their parents, with my grandmother, my grandfather. When the soldiers came, it was the landlord came out with a sword, the Muslim, and they told him, step aside, we don't want to harm you, we just want to get the Jews. He said, on my dead body, this is my children. And they was trying to fight with him. He said that he's getting ready for a fight, and they saw that he's a hard person. There's no way how to convince him. They gave up, and that's what happened by 99.9% of the houses. Okay, so that was in the Second World War. What about the Palestinians when the Zionists showed them we're here to stay, we're here to conquer, to expand, to kill you, to deport you, to make ethnic cleansing? That's what they did in 1948 in the Nakbah. That was the most well-planned ethnic cleansing, which prepared for 30 years. The ethnic cleansing didn't happen at one day. They decided that it would be a good idea now in the middle of the war to kick out the Palestinians. It was a well-planned idea. It was even Arthur Rupin, one of the Zionist leaders, in 1917 said that there's no way how to create a Zionist state in Palestine unless we have to drive out all the Palestinians from there. Okay, fine. So what about the Palestinians conducted 3 revolts in 21, in 29, and in 36. The 36 was called the Great Palestinian Revolt against the Zionist expansion and occupation of Palestine. They all failed because the British Army broke the military power of the Palestinian, and the Palestinians unfortunately left without any military power. They left only with few paramilitary groups that were being outnumbered by the Zionist well-organized army of 90,000 soldiers with tanks, airplanes, cannons, and even chemical weapons, which they conducted few attacks of the Palestinians. In 29, there was some Palestinians from the villages around El Khalil, Hebron, came to conduct massacre as a revenge against the Jewish inhabitant of El Khalil, Hebron. There was about 69 Jews were killed. Unfortunately, it's a large number. But let's take a look at how many were saved. Hundreds of Jews were saved by their neighbors. They hidden them in their apartments.
Yeah.
Why? Because they loved them. The massacre was conducted by Palestinians, which angry Palestinians that came outside of the city. The Palestinians in the city which loved the Jews and
they protected them.
They protected them and they saved them.
Understand.
So and we see now up till now the Palestinians are yet saying we've been genocide. The Palestinians there's no genocide in the history that been tweeted evidently, explicitly, clearly, like the genocide which the Palestinians going through. Every few hours there's 4 Palestinian children getting killed. Every day 10 Palestinian children losing their legs and hands. Every day, there's tens of Palestinian women give birth. How many of the children live alive? There's 18 Palestinian hospitals been destroyed, 120 Palestinian GP medical centers been destroyed, and there's no really medicines in Palestine, in Gaza. If anyone is get injured, is most likely to die.
Yeah.
This is a well-organized genocide that Zionists saying we have to finish the job of 48. In 48, we kicked them out to Gaza. Now we have to kick them out to the Sinai Peninsula and finish the job and to establish the settlements in Gaza. And still the Palestinians says we have nothing against the Jewish religion. We have nothing against the Jews. We're willing to live with them if they will accept our historical, natural right on Palestine, which they are justified to receive it.
Absolutely. I know I'm just conscious of the time, so I just have one question for you. Is that okay? Just on this point. So, first of all, in terms of, let's say if we were trying to look to the future a little bit, in terms of, there are many different people talking about what may be possible for Jews and Muslims or Jews and Palestinians to be able to live together. Mainly people talk about in the international community about two-state solution, having a Jewish state as well as having a Palestinian state. I'd like to know what your view on that is on one point. And the second point is, on the other hand, there are people who would say, no, there should be a one state. Some would say just the state of Israel. But then I think you've put it forward very powerfully and very clearly in terms of why, of course, you are against that concept, that idea. But also, how would you feel about a Muslim state? Like you've talked a lot about the treatment of Jews under Islamic rule in the past, under the Khulafa, the caliphates of Abu Bakr, Uthman, Ali, and throughout history. I know there are Muslims who do present and put forward, look, they would want to return to some form of Sharia rule, some form of rule by the law of the Quran. How would Jews feel about that? What would be your views on those matters?
Yeah, since we, as we say, that we're Jews in exile at the divine decree, and if we look at the past, and we see how the Muslim has treated us, and we see how the Khilafah has treated us with mercy, with consideration and protection, so there's no reason why the Khilafah should be established again. We will only benefit from the Khilafah. We're going to benefit spiritually, economically, and militarily. Militarily, we're going to be protected. Economically, they will allow us to have a full economical rights, and our economy will flourish. Spiritually, there's no time in the history that Jewish religion has been flourished under just such as underneath the Islamic Khilafah. So we will be very happy to accept the Khilafah, the Caliphate. We'll be very happy to pay back the jizya. There's no need for Jewish military to protect from the Muslim. The Muslim will be the same job for us. Protecting us from the Muslim with military will bring destruction for us, for Muslim, but eventually the Muslim will take it over, because now God's will is that the Muslims should rule Palestine. If the Muslims will rule Palestine, it will be our biggest bless for us as Jews. We're going to live underneath under Muslim rule, under the Muslim wings, with mercy and consideration. We'll be very happy. As I said, how many examples we have to bring in order to show that the Muslim had gave us mercy and cooperation and love. Why shouldn't we continue that? Yes, to live under the Khilafah. The Khilafah was a great kingdom that gave a lot for the Jews. And we have to say thank you to all the Caliphs. I'm not going to name them yet. Now, I will start from all the Caliphs. And one, which if I'm going to give 50 kings. I don't want to thank to 10 and for 30 Caliphs. I will not thank him. I said thank you for the great Muslim nation for protecting and allowing the Jews to practice their religion, and it should not be changed. The Khilafah shall have to take back Palestine. We're going to live happily with the Muslims like brothers, with coexistence under their protections. And yes, we used to receive in our Jewish holidays in Baghdad a sheep for the Jewish holiday. There's a Jewish holiday called Pesach. There's a lot of expenses. Our Muslim neighbors to bring in for us sheep. So we will be very happy to receive sheep by the Muslims again. I would take you as a candidate to give me a sheep.
No problem.
No problem.
Yeah.
But let's not think about sheep. Let's think about the hungry people of Gaza. Let's think about the hungry children of Gaza. Let's talk about, first of all, remove this vicious siege on Gaza. Let's talk about stopping bombing and killing innocent civilians in Gaza, in the West Bank. Let's talk about stop this depriving the natural religious rights of the Palestinians to pray in Masjid al-Aqsa. That's terrible what they're doing there. They define what the Muslims, and it's absolutely unjustified. It's vicious. It's dark. The Zionist entity must come to an end. We don't want their vicious, not against Muslims, not against Jews. We and Muslims will live, Jews and Muslims will live under the Khilafah, will have the great time as it was with all the Caliphs, which I partially mentioned by me. There's no reason why it should not come back like that. The Muslim religion would allow us to flourish, to live together, and we'll be very happy together, and we're going to get rid of this satanic state that are bringing so much evil to the world. And then we prevail. Jews and Muslims will live together in Palestine, in Morocco, in Iran, everywhere. And then the world will see that it was a mistake to demonize Muslims after all what they did for us. So we hope that will happen soon, inshallah, and we're going to live back together without all these Zionist atrocities, crime against humanities, the genocides, and all these war crimes which they're conducting against the Palestinians, which was recognized by the High Court of Justice in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for coming along today. It's been very educational, quite emotional also. I think I've really appreciated listening to you, giving a description of the history of Jews and Muslims living side by side, because nowadays we sometimes don't get that narrative. We get the opposite narrative, that there is always conflict between Jews and Muslims, and I think you've made it very clear that this is not the case. And I hope that today's program will be beneficial both for Muslims, the Muslim community, and as well as the Jewish community, to come together and to recognize that we are brothers in humanity, and we are all under God's law. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.